Yes, I am driving, so I'm not going to look at the camera, but I am going to tell a story for your bedtime story that if your leaders so choose, they can play for you. So there was this man who was a quality control inspector that he would inspect factories that did food canning. It was an interesting job. He traveled around a lot to be able to do so. And he enjoyed the travel that he got to do, but he always, of course, he traveled between about 5 different canning stations across the Midwest. It was in the Midwest because the farmers, of course, would bring the different vegetables and whatnot that they would, and beans and all that they would can. And so most of the places he went, the process was pretty normal. They would can for about 3, 4, or 5 different companies, and the way that most of the places worked that he went to is each company would have their own farmer. Like they would have 1 or 2 farms that would send in their produce, and on the canning days that they canned for them, they would cook, steam, process, do whatever they needed to prepare the vegetables to be put into the can, and all the stuff from that farmer would go into the cans for that company. So if it was like a Dole is one of the big companies, right? So if it was a Dole shipment, then their farmers would bring in the stuff. They would steam it, prepare it, peel it, whatever needed to happen, and process it, and then can it, and then label all of it for that day. Everything they ran that day would be for Dole. Well, one of the places that he went to, this smaller operation, was well known for making some of the best high-end organic great canned food. You could really taste the difference in quality of their high-end products that they produced. But they also produced store brand stuff as well. They would produce things for like great value for Walmart. They would produce even the Dollar General canned foods, the ones that have the weirdest labels imaginable, the most generic names that kind of sound like they're just made up on the spot. And so he was very curious to see how they went about their canning process, because he knew that they got all of their stuff sourced from the same farm, because it was, again, a small canning company, and they only did organic farming for all the levels. And so he was very perplexed as to why he would make generic branded food all coming from some of the best farms in the area. And so he would only get to spend about a day in each place, and this process was always the same. He would go there, and at random, he would take a can off of the pallets of cans that were ready to go out. He would go in, randomly select cans, take them to a room that they had set up for him, where he would open them up, prepare them however he's supposed to prepare them, whatever the heating instructions were. He would open them up and taste them and rate them and run them through some tests. He had things that would test for anything having gone wrong within it, and he would usually do that test actually before he tasted them. He would look at the expiration dates, and he would use his machines to determine, are these still good? Do they have any foodborne illnesses in them? Things like that. When he determined they didn't have any foodborne illnesses, he would taste them for quality assurance purposes, making sure they didn't have any strange taste or foreign objects in them. He would sometimes put them through a filter to filter out all the juices, so he could push the items around and examine to make sure that only the item that was supposed to be in there was in there. They didn't get any carrots mixed in with corn, per se. Things like that. So that's the process he always went through, and he always found that all the big manufacturers, he would go in and he would inspect them all and taste them all. They all tasted generally the same, no matter what company they were shipping the items off to. They were all basically the same product, except for this one smaller outlet, like I said, that got all of its stuff from one big organic farm in the area. And so every time he went there and went through this process, he of course had all the different brands to try from, and he would notice that when he tasted the generic brands, they were good, but pardon me, but they were clearly of a lower quality. than when he would taste the high-end products that were meant to go to the organic places like Love's Whole Foods or other fancier stores that sell the clean products that are meant to be enjoyed by the wealthy people who care so much about making sure that their products are not in any way tainted with chemicals or things like that, which we should all want, but we can't all afford that. Anyway, the high-end products always tasted significantly better. So he decided, is this really the case, or am I just convincing myself that they truly are a better product? So what he decided to do one day when he went to this smaller operation that did the generic and high-end cans is he was going to do a blind taste test. He asked them, okay, what I would like for you to do is take the labels off of these cans, put a letter on them before, and write down on a piece of paper what brand each letter represents. And I want to do a blind taste test of all of these cans, and I'm going to order them from best down to, I'm going to say worst, but they're still good. Don't worry. I still think everything you produce is a good product, but from highest quality to lowest quality. Let's say that. And so they did that for him with several different products. They got corn, he got carrots, and he got green beans. So he went through with the corn, tasted each of them. There was a clear difference in the taste from the high end all the way down to the low, in his opinion. So he ranked them accordingly. He did the same thing with the green beans, and he did the same thing with the carrots. When it was all said and done, and he looked at the letter chart compared to what he had laid out before him, sure enough, he really did rank them perfectly. The generic brand that was for the dollar store was the lowest, and then like his Walmart brand was the next step up from there. The normal brand name that isn't high-end but it's certainly not a generic brand was second from the top, and then the organic high-end brand that cost the most money was at the top. And so he was completely fascinated by this, and he decided, next time I come through here, I need to watch their process of how they go about canning these things, because I know that they get all of their fruits and vegetables from the same place. And so about a month later, when he was there to do his quality control check again, he decided to book himself a couple of extra days there to watch the process. And what he saw was pretty amazing. So the day he was there, the first day he was there, they were working on carrots. So they peeled them all, they steamed them, they put them through the process, and he watched as they were sorting them into the cans. He watched, and there was a man who was standing up on the balcony. He would watch the products coming down the line, and he would see them being canned. And at one point he would say, all right, pallet C. And they would carry off all the cans from that particular run to pallet C. And then at some point he would say, okay, pallet B, pallet A. And it seemed random to the person watching why he would make these decisions, but he would just watch over all of them and tell them which pallets to put them on. Pallet A, pallet B, pallet C, pallet D. And they would change throughout the entire run of this same group of carrots. This man would just watch and tell him what pallet to go to. Pretty amazing process. And so then he watched as they can't put each one on the pallets, and then at the end of the day, he directed them, the pallet Ds all went to wherever they put pallet Ds to be labeled as one certain product, C's to their place, B's to their place, and A's to their place. Well, interestingly enough, the ones that were labeled as pallet D, he had them take outside. And he said, all right, leave those there overnight and we'll get them in the morning. And sure enough, he had remembered seeing that when he arrived there that morning, they brought in a pallet from outside, put them through a drying process because they were wet from having stayed outside all night, and then set them aside to be labeled and shipped out the following day. He thought, that's curious. This is a big warehouse. They have plenty of room. Why are they putting one outside? Strange, but he didn't really think much more of it. And so he knew, okay, I want the next day I'm going to try these carrots, and I want to see what the taste is of each of these carrots and see if he's really done a good job of separating these. So the next day he watched the process again. When he got there, the ones from outside are brought in and set to dry, and A, B, C, and D are going to be labeled that day. So he marks one from A, one from B, one from C, one from D as ones that he wants to be brought to him later. And he goes on about his day watching them do the same thing with the corn. And sure enough, that same man stood up there and he watched the things being processed. He pointed to either pallet D, pallet C, pallet B, or pallet A. And sure enough, they put each one there. And at the end of the day again, he says, all right, pallet D, put it outside. And so they put it outside. He decided to go and ask for his cans of carrots. They brought them to him. He tried each and every one of them. And each and every one of them tasted appropriate according to their brand name. The dollar store one was of the lowest quality, and the high-end one was of the best quality, and the other two in between were their appropriate level of quality. And he was just blown away by this fact that this man seems to have this ability to stand up there and determine which ones are going to go where from the same exact batch of food, and he could tell the quality just from looking at them from up there. And so he needed to know how this happened, but unfortunately, by the third day when he wanted to talk to the man, he was very busy, directing everything. And then afterwards he said, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you, I have a meeting, but why don't you come and talk to me the next time you're in town, and I'll be happy to share with you how I go about this process. And so he said, okay, that's fine. And so he had to go, he had given himself extra days there, more beyond what he normally did, but that was okay. And so he went to the other factories over that next month, and he started picking their brains and asking people, do you ever see anything like this? He talked to the manager of these companies and said, I watched as this man directed things from here to there, all from the same batch. And they said, no, that's not any way we would ever do anything like that. We put all our things in the same batches. And the man said, well, I've noticed that as I try your food, some are better quality, some are worse from the same exact farms. If I try a whole group of cans that were canned on the same day but are canned at different times within that process, I do notice a difference in their quality. Would you ever consider trying to do something like this man did? And they say, no, it's not worth it to us. It would take too much time to try to determine, these are the best carrots out of this group, these are the worst carrots. And honestly, just from looking at them, I don't even know how that would be possible. And so they said, we could let you watch the process, and you could see if you could figure out which ones you think would be the best, and we'll let you try them and see if you're right. And so the inspector's like, yeah, you know what? I've seen a lot of canned foods in my life. I bet I could try to figure out how this man does this. And so he watched the process go through. This time it was with peas. And he watched the peas coming through, and he thought, okay, those ones are nice and deep green. Let me try some of those. I bet those are going to be the best quality. He watched the process going through, and he saw some that were kind of a lighter green but still nice. He said, okay, put those in the next. I think that's going to be next quality down. And he did this all throughout until he saw some weak looking peas that were not the greatest in coloring, and said those would be the lowest quality. Had them pulled off and put into a bowl for him, and then he went and tasted them, and according to what he thought they were going to be, and it was completely random. Some of them tasted great that were a little off color, and some of the ones that were deep green had a lack of flavor to them, to where it was just a completely random assortment of whether or not they were good. So he was frustrated by this idea that he couldn't figure out how this was done. He tried it at the next factory. He got them to agree to do the same thing for him, and he tried it with corn. He tried it with sweet potatoes. He tried it over and over again during this next month. Everywhere he went, he asked if he could try this process, and they were all willing to oblige, because you got to keep the quality control man happy. And no matter what he tried, he could not figure it out. And so he decided, you know what, when I get to this place the next time, I'm going to see, hopefully the man will talk to me and he'll explain his process. And so he said, by the time that month was over, he was very frustrated. He never did successfully manage to determine which ones would be of the best quality, which ones would be of the most poor quality. So he gave up and decided to just ask this man the next time he was there. The man had already told him that he would talk to him. So when he finally got around to that small batch place again that did all of the cans from the same farm, but of varying qualities, he saw the man up on the deck watching the process. This time it was a bunch of string beans going through, and he said, okay, can I stand with you and have you tell me what you're looking for as you're looking for each one going through? The guy's like, well, I don't know how much that'll help, but sure, why not? I'm parked now, by the way, so it's okay. I can look at the camera. He said, sure, I'll give it a shot. Why not? Go for it. And so he stood up there, and the man said, all right. The process started coming through. He's like, you see those right there? Those are of low quality. And he said, how do you know? He's like, well, you can just tell by looking at them they're low quality. I don't know. It's just it's a sight thing, you know? Look at them. Can't you tell that those are going to go in the poorest quality? He's like, sure. And sure enough, the man directs it to go to the poorest quality stack. He's not really paying attention to which stacks he's sending into. He's just focusing so much on the products as they're going through. And he's like, okay, can I try one? And he's like, sure. As soon as you see what you believe to be a change in the quality, you tell me, and you tell me what quality you think it's going to be. And so he watched it and determined, okay, I think I see a change coming. Wasn't sure why. He's like, I think I see a change coming though, and I think these are going to be the second highest quality. So as soon as that section of line got up there, he said, okay, this is the second highest quality. And the guy's like, no, there's still the lowest quality coming through here. It's like, well, what do you know? And then all of a sudden the guy's like, okay, now those are high quality ones. And he directs them to take them to the high quality for the next few batches. He's like, what? I didn't see a difference in those at all. They looked exactly the same to me. The process went on like this all day long. He kept trying to guess, okay, there's the break. That's when it's going to change. He was never right. And he's like, okay, maybe this guy's messing with me. I'm not going to say it out loud, but I'm going to think in my mind, when I think I see the best quality coming through, or a change in quality coming through, I'm just going to think it and see how long it takes before he says, okay, yes, we're changing this. And so he would watch, he'd see, oh, these ones look pretty good coming along. He's going to stop it and say, okay, those are the high quality ones. Go and put those there. And he'd watch, and sure enough, they would get there and go right on past. No change. And then about a minute later, the guy would say, okay, now change, and he would determine what batch they would go to. This frustrated this man to no end. This poor inspector was beside himself trying to understand what was happening. And then at the end of the day, same thing happened. All right, pallet C over there, pallet D over there, pallet B over there, pallet D outside. These other pallets going where they go. The man said, okay, did you learn anything from me today as you watch? And the inspector said, honestly, no, sir, I didn't. I don't understand how you make the decision. He's like, okay, I'm out of time now. You watched the whole process all day long. If you didn't get it, I can't really explain it to you, but I'll do my best. I'll give you some time to actually sit down and talk to me next time you come through. And this, of course, drove this inspector crazy. He's like, but I need the answers now. This is amazing what you're doing, and I need to understand how this is possible. The guy said, I promise. I will tell you my secret the next time you come, okay? And he's like, okay. And so he went on through the next month. Continually, he's become an obsession of him. He's gone crazy with watching products right on down the line, and it's become his process. Everywhere he goes, he's like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to tell him to scoop out this, and I'm going to determine what is the best, what is the second best, third best, and so on. He fails every single time he tries for that full month. He's at the end of himself, but he's decided, okay, this man's going to tell me his secret, and it's going to be okay. And so the next time he got to that same factory that he had been obsessing over, that he watched the whole process for the whole day again, was patient, because he knew this guy's going to tell me his secret. But one thing he did, being able to pay closer attention this time, he noticed that what the man determined would be the best quality, because he kept calling out to him, okay, that's the low quality one, that's going here. He noticed it was the exact opposite of what he had assumed. He had always assumed that batch A would be the high quality ones, and then batch D, the ones he stored outside, were clearly of inferior quality. He didn't care about those cans. That's why he would store them outside all night and then have to dry them the next day and put the labels on. But it turned out that the ones that he determined and said were the best ones are the ones he put on pallet D. And the ones he determined to go to the generic dollar store, he would put on pallet A. So he was thinking over this all day long, like, what is the reasoning behind this? Why would you put your best products outside all night and they get wet, overnight, and they have to dry them and put the labels on? That's just annoying. Why would you do that? And especially, what if the cans were to rust or something like that because you would expose them to water like that? I don't understand this whole reasoning. And so the guy sat down to talk with him at the end of the day, and he said, You know, it's just something I've always done. I've always been able to. I watched my process of my products being produced, and I tasted a lot of them, and I've gotten to where I can just tell on site, because I've done this for so long, which ones are gonna taste good and which ones are gonna taste bad. And he's like, okay, why do you put the ones that are best outside? And he's like, okay, well, you know, that actually comes down to some advice I received when I wanted to start this canning company. My dad was a farmer, and I told him I wanted to start being a canner, and I wanted to start this company, but I'm nervous. What if I fail? What if everything goes wrong? What if I don't know what to do? And my dad gave me some really good advice, and I think it's really helped me. I don't know why it works, but it does. And I said, okay, what's this advice? I'd love to hear this. And he said, well, you know, my dad sat down and told me, you'll always be okay, son, and you'll be successful if you just do the best you can.